I just won this on eBay. It's a Proxxon. It says up here, you can't quite see it because it's off. I'll move it a fraction. Beltsander BSE, small, torque resistant, solid and versatile, die cast aluminium head for high stability. Apparently it was working until it wasn't. Don't know anything about it. Apparently it was working and then it just stopped working. Don't quite. Presumably this twists or something, I don't know. That's oh, nice kind person has clip on the lead for us. Got a whole load of spare belts, so we've certainly got some belts if we can get it to work. Now, let's try. Oh, it would be helpful if I untangled it, wouldn't it? Let's try plugging it in. Right, that's plugged in and switched on. Oh! That wasn't good. That's enough to put the fear of God in you, isn't it? I wonder if we've got a short circuit somewhere. We'll unplug that. I wonder if there's any chance the fuse will have survived that. You wouldn't think so, would you? Oh yeah, that's tight. Oh. 13 amp fuse. Let's see what the multimeter says if we put that on continuity. My one doesn't beep, so we'll just have to go by the number on there. When we've got continuity, it's going to drop to 0 or thereabouts. Oh well, it went bang, but the fuse didn't blow. So what's this bit here then? Some sort of like dust extraction, I suppose. So presumably we have a fault at this end. Does that pull out? No, it doesn't appear to, does it? But it looks like you should have a fitting a bit like that at this end. That's a terrible job for a plug. That screw's hanging out. Can't make out what kind of is that a Torx? Is it 9 like the Bosch tools? Oh, that's very loose. So maybe somebody's already had this apart. Oh wow, look at that! My God, that's a screw and a half, that is. Oh, it goes right through to there. That's surely not supposed to be like that. I can't believe that's meant to be like that. This all seems a bit strange to me. That can't be. No, because look, when that turns round, that's going to fit there like that. And there are holes there for these to go into. Well, I've no idea what's happening here. I wonder if the seller's had this apart. Or maybe that explains why it blew up. Made it a bit dangerous though, if they've taken it apart and played around with it and they don't know what they're doing. So that's the motor part. So that just pulls off. So that's the drive for that. So the drive for the actual belt part is intact. We've got the motor in there. And the part that went bang was this part, wasn't it? And we still don't know what that is. Like that just strikes me as being very odd, but I cannot pull that out. Does this lift off? In the past, with a lot of things I've fiddled with, the variable speed part packs up, but I've not known it make such an explosion as that. That'll go up to there and still can't work out. Oh, I think there's some sort of clip holding on to that end there. Oh, you can see where it went bang, look. That's all black. So that's where it went bang. But what part went bang? I thought it would have been one of these capacitors that had gone bang, but it doesn't look like it. Well, the seller didn't say they'd had it apart, they just said that it stopped working, but it looks like that's not quite the whole story, because it looks like it's been taken apart and someone has not really bothered to put it back together properly. Well, I think if we unsolder here and here, that'll get the power lead off of that board, won't it? I don't know what colour you'd call that, but the pinky coloured wire seems to have 101, not sure what that is, 1018, something like that, but it's got a number next to it anyway, so we know which one that is. Can't see any numbers on this one, and obviously something's black, so something went wrong there. I've been sitting here waiting for my soldering iron to warm up, not realising that the bang we had took out the electrics, but all it did was blow the resettable fuse in the fuse box, so I just had to go and reset that. Right, so if we get that off, right, so that's off of there now. Right, I've finally managed to get the switch loose. All it is these little plastic bar there and there, but I couldn't reach them to push them in properly. The switch looks like it's all okay. It looks like you've got to unsolder the switch to take it out, because it doesn't look as if there's any way that this part of the switch will fit in that way round. Right, I've finally got this loose a bit. It looks like it's starting to break up there. So I guess it's probably, that is why it appeared to bend all the time. Perhaps that pinky looking colour is actually meant to be brown, because that would be brown live, blue would be neutral, so there's no earth. Obviously it's considered to be all encased in plastic, so it's safe to leave without an earth. That can go on there, so we just need to get that blue wire off of there. I wonder if this could be old enough that it's got leaded solder, because soldering has come undone very easily. I can't imagine that we've got a short circuit in the wires, but I suppose it wouldn't be a bad idea to check. I can only check for continuity of the wire, but it's something. So let me check live back to the plug. And we've got continuity, and we've got no connection to neutral, no connection to the earth, but I don't think the earth's connected to anything anyway. Let's try the neutral line. No, that's not connected to live in any way, but it is connected direct to the neutral point, so that's great. And again, nothing connected to earth. So it looks like our lead is okay. Right, next I'm going to unsolder this circuit board. It's marked plus and minus, and plus is red and minus is black, so that'll make life easy for soldering it back together again, if we ever manage to work out what's wrong with it. Well, I'm guessing that the fault is on the circuit board. It could be the motor. Right, that's that one. Ouch, I just burnt my finger. Certainly used a lot of solder. Alright, so that's the motor. I don't really need the motor out, but I'm going to take the motor out because then I can just give these plastic parts a wash. Use the good old Black & Decker twisty thing. This is I love using this. You put your hand on the back, you turn to the left, and off it goes. It undoes. Amazing. It puts a smile on my face every time I use it. Put it in there, hand on the back so you've got some power, turn to the left, and the more you push to the left, the more power it develops, which is even more impressive. Right, now does it matter which way around this motor goes in or comes out? Oh, we got a plastic cap that comes off. And that comes off there. And then there's our motor. Oh, and I see it sits in there at a slight tilt, and the red wire is the one at the bottom. Come on, screw. Right, so there's the screw. So there's the two screws. Like I say, I'm going to give this a wash. Give that part a wash. So the motor, if that says plus and minus, it means that the motor is surely a DC motor. So I wonder if we can test the motor. I'm not sure what the highest DC voltage I can generate is. It's only about 30 volts, but it won't be very much current. No luck with the motor, so I'm wondering if the motor itself is faulty. I'm trying to work out how you get it apart. It looks like it's got brushes under these two plastic parts, but I can't see any way that these can ever be taken out, because it looks like everything's held in place by this end plate, and this end plate has got crimped ends to stop it coming off. These engineer's pliers will sometimes grip things that other pliers won't, so I'm going to try and get hold of these crimped over edges, bend them back a little bit, but no, I'm not having a lot of luck. I'm quite surprised. I mean, tapping that, I've been tapping it with this little chisel. It has pushed everything back, so the only problem is it's still a very tight fit. Oh, there we go. Right, so that looks like that's just a bearing. Typical brass bearing that you find in a lot of these things. It's a plastic insulator. And then presumably this houses the brushes and lifts off. And that sounded like... Ah! Well, that's not a good sign. Brush falls out. The rest of the commutator looks okay. I mean, it's not excessively worn or anything. I wonder how easy it will be to get that gear cog off. I'm always wary of pulling these gear cogs off because I've had so many of them break over the years. I've managed to get my little homemade puller onto there, so with a bit of luck it keeps trying to slide off, though they haven't made a sort of a dimple or anything in the end of the spindle, so it keeps trying to slide off, but it is slowly making progress. There we go, we've definitely got progress now. That's it, brilliant. So homemade puller saves the day again. I had to open it slightly wider there to get it to fit, but it did fit. Right, so we should be able to get this apart completely now. Whoa, those magnets are strong, crikey. Yeah, it wouldn't hurt to have a bit of a clean in there. That looks absolutely fine. So, let's see what this thing shows now. Put that on. Right. So there's continuity. Right, let's try. So that's connected to that one. And that's connected to that one. That's connected to not that one. Nor that one. Nor that one. So why is that one not connected to anything now? Let's try further around. They're connected. They're connected. They're connected. Oh, they're connected. Is it just the way it's wired up? Got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then that's not connected. So I go there, that's connected to there, that's connected to there, that's connected to there, that's connected to there. Right, I'm certain these segments should be in some kind of, you know, all connected to each other all the way around. So I think this thing is possibly short-circuited, and perhaps this motor short-circuited from the wiring. That blew the circuit board, maybe, I don't know. I'm wearing a glove because I started looking at this yesterday and I managed to slip with this and slice through my thumb. There's it's bleeding a little bit inside there. I've started trying to peel these back because I want to get to the wire. I'm not sure if you can see that the wires are in there. Each one of these seems to have a very fine wire going to it. Obviously a knife is not a good idea, or a scalpel is not a good idea, but I can't get anything else to go underneath the edge here. But of course you're prying against this, and if you slip the knife goes that way, and that's what it did. It sliced straight through my thumb. So I'm not having a good time here with this, but I need to get more of these up so I can see what the wire is doing. Very, very difficult. I don't know if they use some kind of machine, not just to bash them down. It's squashed here. You can see where the copper's been squashed, but you can't seem to pry underneath it. If I try to push that underneath, I just can't get underneath there. It's very strange. I don't know if they use some sort of resistance heating at the same time, but it's almost impossible to lift up, so you can see it's starting to break there. Right, I've finally got all those pulled back, so that's presumably that's where the wires that make this thing up, there's all the wires, and they run up here and they must terminate on these. I don't know if there's any way of dissolving this varnishy stuff, because I could do with varnish getting rid of that. I think pull that little stack of washers off that end, and it looks like there's another little stack on this end. Let's get those off. That's plastic. That looks like it's got a plastic core, so that must be to insulate this spindle from the rest of it. I don't know what these green blobs are for. There's no sign of any marks on here for balancing, so it's possible that the green blobs were to balance the thing up when it was done. But the problem I've got now, of course, is this is going to need a lot of tidying, but I need to find the wires, and I don't know if you can see on there, but I can't see any sign of any wire. So I need to have a poke around and try and find some wire. I doubt that you'll be able to see any of this, but there is a loop of copper wire there that's not actually in whatever this goo is. It's just floating in space, and then around here, yeah, that's a bit that's going nowhere. Oh, that's a break. There's a piece there, up there, and there's a piece there, so that bit there, oh, that's actually a break in the wires. And again, it's not buried in whatever this stuff is. It looks like sort of 2-pack adhesive. I don't know what it is, but I can't get it off. I've tried putting chemicals on it, nothing happens. Right, so that is a definite break. So if this is one loop of wire, then of course there's not much of a loop anymore, because that's a break. But like I say, I can't find anywhere that would be a beginning and an end. You would think that somewhere in amongst all of these, because there's a sort of a cross shape, you probably can't see it, but it goes down that way and then up that way, so presumably it goes round there, so presumably the wire comes across from the left, up, round, back down, goes off to where it wants to go, comes back, goes up, round and back down. And this one I can't make out. There's something different here. There's a sort of a blob. Now whether that's part to do with it, I don't know, but here at this point I've got what could be something going up, but I can't quite work out how it went round and came back down again, because there's a wire there and then there's a wire here going around the next one. Something looks different at this point, so at this particular one here appears to be that one and possibly that one. Got something there, but when you look from this side there's no sign of any wire at all. And the problem is I can't just start ripping this to pieces, because I don't know how the wire was put on in the first place. Right, I'm going to have more of a poke around here and see if I can loosen some of this, I don't know, is it potting compound or something, but it's just rock hard and it won't dissolve. I've spent probably 3 hours picking away at that and trying to get some of this stuff out. It's virtually impossible, but I've got some of it off. I've tried soaking it in every solvent I've got and nothing makes any difference whatsoever. I don't know what to do. I'm going to put it in some solvent overnight and see if that makes any difference. Right, this has had about 12, maybe 14 hours in brake cleaner, which is the sort of strongest solvent type thing I've got, and you can see it's had no effect whatsoever on whatever this is, which, like I say, is it's a bit like sort of 2-pack adhesive. There it might have actually taken a little bit off, and maybe if I leave it long enough eventually it would do something, but it's still way too much to take off. And it's annoying because I wanted to unwind this in such a way that I could find out how it was actually put together in the first place, because I really need to know how many windings and where they go. People on YouTube make it look so easy when they rewind these things, but it looks the next best thing to impossible to me, because how do you decide how many wires? Obviously you can count them, but they're all glued together. And how do you decide where they go? That bunch there looks like they start here. But what do they connect to? Do they connect this side or this side? Or both? This side, I think, but I'm not sure. And then they go round here, and it looks like they go down there. So I'm still stuck. Right, I'm going to have to try a bit more brute force approach, I think. I'm going to assume that that's the coil of wire going across there, and it's coming down here in between these two. I don't know where it goes after that. I'm going to take a guess that it comes down here, so at least if I mark here, I don't know if I can call that number 1, as I need a starting point. That could be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I think for 10 we'll have to go sideways. 10, 11, 12. So we seem to have 12 of those, and that appears to go down there between 1 and 12. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and cut that little bunch there . But obviously I don't really know what I'm cutting. This is what puzzles me about other YouTubers who do this sort of thing. They seem to know what they're doing, but how do they know what they're doing? Because from reading textbooks it would appear that there are different ways of winding these things. So if you just take it all off and then rewind it, you won't necessarily have rewound it the way it was wound originally. So I don't really understand the idea that you just chop it all off and put new wire on, because that's not what the textbooks tell you you can do. But you can see it's almost impossible to decide what wire you've got or how much you've got, because it's just a horrible mess. Right, well it looks like that one that appeared to go down there between 1 and 12 looks like it's going down here between 5 and 6. It's very difficult to get hold of and pull, but you can see. Now I don't know if I've left some behind, because it looks like possibly I've left a little bit of wire behind there, but it's at this level everything's so sticky and gooey it's impossible to know. I don't know how we're going to count how many wires there are. That looks like there might be possibly another one, and there's something there that I can't get. Can we get tweezers on it? That could be another one. Right, see any more? See, the problem is you can see that there are sort of some stray, or maybe you can't see, but there are some stray wires here and there, and I don't know what they are connected to. But if we assume that all this are part of this bunch, it's leaving some behind in there. I don't know why. So again, they might be connected to up here still. Hopefully at some point we'll be able to get one complete bunch out without too much damage and know what it's connected to, because I can still see some loose wires that could be part of this. Right, now if we pull that, where's that going next? Well, where does that go next? That seems to come over here. And now I'm stuck. Oh no, there it goes. Right, and that's going down between 1 and 12 by the looks of things, which would mean that this is going to... Oh, well, I meant rip off when it gets to this end, not rip off halfway down. Oh dear. Yeah, they don't show you this on other YouTube channels, do they? Right, all we can do is repeat the whole procedure again with another one of these and see what happens. There seems to be a coil there, but again I don't know if I've got all of it or part of it, because everything is just stuck together. So but let's just assume that that's a good part of it. Right, so that one seems to be coming out between 11 and 12. Now, where's it going next? Can't move it. Crikey, that's tight. It's obviously going across there somewhere. Perhaps I've got more than one. Perhaps I've got part of another coil caught onto this one, so I'm fighting myself. I'm not really sure. Yeah, that looks like it might be part of a different coil. That's going to rip, I think. Yeah, it is, that's going to rip. So where does that go? I think if I try and grip it with these, they're just going to cut through it. Yeah, there's so much goo up here holding it all on, it just doesn't want to know. Let's try a different pair of grips, see if these will grip a bit better. Yeah, those grip a little bit better. Oh, but not much better. So where is this going? I just can't tell. I think it might be going between 6 and 7. Right, I'm starting another end. This looks like it's coming out of 6 and 7 at this end. But again, it's impossible to tell when you've got a whole lump. How we're ever going to know how many? And then that seems to go 1, 2. So it looks like we've got 6, 7, 1, 2. And of course once it gets to here, it's anybody's guess what it does, because it just, there is so much goo at this end. I can't. So I think, well, we'll just keep trying. I'm making a mess. Whether we'll ever get this back together again is of course a completely different story. That looks like a bunch there. And you can see as this one comes up, there's another bunch there, and I don't know if these two are part of the same bunch or if this is a separate bunch of wire, but so that one appears to come up between 8 and 9. And then where does it go after that? Because surely not between 1 and 12. We've already had a few that do that, or at least one that does that. It's all starting to break off, but it definitely looks like it's trying to come down there between 1 and 12. But no, that's split away, so that's broke. This one I can't. I guess it's going to break because I can't get it to move any. Oh, something's moving a little bit, but so going back to that one, is that going to go back to 6 and 7? It's going somewhere. That big bunch went back to 6 and 7, so that's something. We've still got this bunch here. I can't work out where that goes and what that's part of. And it looks like it goes down there between 1 and 12, but I can't get hold of it. What have we got here? If we assume that that's... Is that coming up between 2 and 3? No, is that between 8 and 9, or 9 and 10? Well, it's either 8 and 9 or 9 and 10. I'm not sure where that one went. And then when it gets over here, where on earth does it go next? That's got to be between 1 and 2, surely. Yeah, that's all starting to break up again, but I think that is between 1 and 2. I got so fed up with this that I spun it in the lathe, and I've taken everything off this end that I dare, because I don't want to actually hit solid metal, I'm just touching it. And the same at this end. The problem at this end is that I've got a couple of chewed up bits of metal here, the actual steel this is made of, so I'm reluctant to go too near it. The copper has just become like one lump of copper in there, so I now need to find some way of hammering out that copper. Right, I think you can see from the mess that I've been working on this, I reckon for nearly 4 hours over a period of 2 days. I think this is about as clean as I'm ever going to get it. It's still not perfect, but the goo, the adhesive or whatever it was, this resin, it was everywhere. And even when the wires were finally chiselled out, it was still almost impossible to get the stuff out. But I think that's about as clean as it's ever going to be. So far, the only motors I can find for sale are in Germany, and the people selling them want to charge me a lot of money for delivery, obviously the price of the motor, then they want to charge me 19% German VAT, and then when that whole lot of motor price, delivery, 19% VAT is all put together and sent to the UK, I will be charged 20% VAT by UK customs. So this little motor becomes so expensive that it's not really worth buying a motor to put into a broken machine. It's very sad. So I'm going to have a go at fixing this, because I believe this is the only thing that's wrong with it. I cut this piece of paper so that it will fit in these slots. So if I put that in there, see, that will just sit in there, and a tiny bit will stick out this end and a tiny bit will stick out that end, and that will be the insulator. So I need to make 12 of those, and I need to make 12 of those out of plastic insulated paper, which here in the UK is very expensive to buy, much to my surprise. Sorry, this is upside down. This is Nomex paper by DuPont, apparently. I think it was 0.14 millimeters thick. I think that's what I was told. That's my guide. It's 11 millimeters that way and roughly 31 that way. So I need to mark off 11 millimeters. I'm not sure the accuracy has to be fantastic, so 22, 33. It'd be helpful if this was actually showing up. 33, 44, 55, 66, 77, 98, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 99, 110, 120, 130, 3, 140, 4, 50, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 minutes. So right in there, and it goes up 30. So, that, I can just 31. Right, and I just need to mark those marks here, draw a load of lines, cut it out. Right, there you are. I've got 13 of those marked out. I just need to cut them out. The dotted lines are where I'm going to fold them in the middle, so I just need to cut those out. I'll have one spare. Right, this is a case of learning by doing. I've discovered that folding it in the middle is actually quite difficult. But if I run a pointer down the middle first, then it is much more happy to fold in the middle. Right, there's the insulators made, and now do they fit? So that goes in there, that's going to go across there, tiny little bit sticking out each end. That looks like that will do it. I've seen some people on YouTube where they give them a curled back edge on themselves, and I did try that in just plain paper to see how that would work, and the whole thing becomes too complicated trying to fold because these are just too small. So, and I don't recall it looking like that in the first place when I took the other one apart, although it was very difficult to tell what it was like originally because there was so much of that resiny stuff all over everything, so it was very difficult to tell what anything was supposed to look like. As you can see though, these seem to be, I think they're going to do the job, so they seem to be doing it. They're going in okay. Obviously we only need 12, so I should have one left over. We might even be able to just put them in from the top. Yeah, we can. push that one back a little bit. Having never done this before, of course this is a first. So if I'm not doing this right, feel free to tell me in the comments that I'm a daft old man who doesn't know what he's doing, because I would happily go along with that. But as I cannot find anybody who will sell me a motor at a sensible price, repairing this seems to be the only option. Now our next problem, or my next problem, is how much wire goes through there. And that is a real problem. I need to try to work out how much wire goes through there. My best guess so far is 140 turns. Of course, my guesstimate of 140 is based on trying to count resin coated gooed up wire. It's very difficult to know what the exact number is, and I don't actually know any way of finding out what the exact number is. So for anyone who thinks that armature winding with commutator connections is simple, this is a guide that I pulled off of the internet. It says direction of rotation that way, carbon brush would be there, other carbon brush would be there. I'm assuming they're 180 degrees apart. Here's the commutator segments, so they go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way around, back 13, 14, 15, end up 24, which is next to number 1. And these here are the slots there, and they run 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now my problem is, how do you do that on there? And there is another problem as well, because this picture is upside down in comparison to that. Now I don't think I can wind it that way up, which is the way this picture is, because I don't know, maybe I can, but it just seems to me that trying to grip hold of this little bit here while I work here is not going to be easy. Really, it would be easier to hold this still and work at this end. But does this still apply, or do I have to turn this upside down? And do I now number these according to these numbers and these according to those numbers? And the answer to that question is, haven't got a clue. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my best to number these. I'm just going to pick a point. I mean, I don't know how you pick a point. If we just sort of say, now let's say that there is a mark up on here. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what that mark represents. But if we say somewhere up there. Now, if I put a 1 there and a 1 there, then the gap between those two would be number 1. And then if I put a 2 there and a 2 there, then the gap between them would be number 2. And if I put a 3 there and a 3 there, then the gap there would be number 3 slot. And if I put a 4 there and a 4 there, that gap would be number 4 slot. And then 5 for that slot, 6 for that slot, 7 for that slot, 8 for that slot, which means that that would be 9 for that slot, 10 for that slot, 11 for that slot there, and then this last slot, which would be this one here, would be 12, 12, like that. And so then I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, so I'd end up back where I started. And then it looks like number 1 is more or less opposite number 1, but I can't write numbers on these. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit of masking tape around the top, like that. Trim off the excess. And then I'm going to find a pen and mark these. Chances of finding a pen are not good, but oh, there's one. Right, so if we say that that is the gap between number 1, then that would make that one there number 1, according to this. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But you can see that these are quite small. 8, 9. Right, so there's our slots numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. And there, and it gets very, very small. But I can just about read the writing on there to tell me which of these commutator segments I'm working on. Now, that is almost impossible to read, because if you look at it, it says, it doesn't say where to start, but if I assume I'm going to start at number 1 with number 1, then I come up to here, and then I go across to there, across up to here, across to here, across to there, back down there, and then back down there, and I'm lost already. I'm not sure which one I've come down, and if I come down this one I end up at number 1, and if I come down that one I end up at number 2. So it's very difficult to follow. I think that one ends up at number 2. What I did was, the red ink on it is me drawing lines, because what I did was I sat down and I carefully went through and tried to map out where all these connections go. And that's what this is. So if I start at C1, which is commutator 1, I go across to slot 7, come back through slot 2, and end up at commutator number 2. Now this would carry on in a long row of instructions, but obviously I need to drop down. So that C2 is this C2. So when I'm back at C2, I then need to go through slot 8, through slot 3, and end up at commutator 3. And then from commutator 3, I go to slot 8 again, slot 3 again, to commutator 4. And so on. So this is where I go. Now that's all very well, but you've got to remember that the wire doesn't go from slot 1 to slot 2 through them once. It goes round and round and round and round and round. So it's a lot harder than it looks. Wish me luck. This is the wire that we're going to use, 0.1mm, looks like a hair, I'm not even sure you can see it. That's the wire that we're going to use to wind it. I don't know if this is going to help or hinder, but I've stuck 2 little pieces of masking tape there, which I've done the same on this side, and they are identifying that between them is slot 2, and between those on the other side is slot 7, and here, you might just be able to see it, is the reel. So that's the wire, so that's coming over to here. So the first place it's got to go to is to number 1. And this poses a problem straight away, because when you look at this, you just think, well, how am I going to do anything with this wire? I mean, it is like a hair. And I'm assuming it's coated with something to act as an insulator. And how do I get whatever it's coated with off? I mean, normally you can just scrape it off. How do you scrape something off that's that fine? I'm not even sure you can see it on the camera. So it poses a bit of a problem. And obviously it's so fine that scissors snip it as if it's not even there. And I'm worried that even with using the scissors to scrape it, I run the risk of breaking it. So I'm just scraping gently against it, but I mean, for all I know, nothing is actually happening, because when it's a thick wire you can see stuff peeling off. But I have no way of knowing, have I actually taken anything off of that? Now I know that I start at number 1, and this one here is number 1. I'll push that on as far as I can. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go round twice with this one, because I don't want it suddenly deciding to come loose while I'm turning. You can see how fiddly it is. I can't even get my fingers in there to get hold of it. The tweezers in there. And there we go. And again, I lose sight of it, it's so thin. It's just sticking up there. You might just be able to see, there it is there. Don't know. And then here's the end. Now, according to the instructions, this now goes over to the other side, down through number 7, which it hasn't done. Back up through number 2 and then across. And if I pull that reasonably tight, I've done that. So that's 1, and then down, across, back up, 2, down, across, back up, 3. Now you can see this is going to take a long time. Right, that's 35 turns. It's almost impossible to see, but that's 35 turns. The wire comes up, but it can't go straight to 2 because it would stick up in the air too much. So the only option I've got really is to go round the back, around back to the front, and then up onto number 2. And number 1 wire is sticking in the way already, and it's so fine I can't even push it out of the way with my finger. So that is 32. Sorry, number 2. So that is number 2. And of course the problem is that now I need to get that off, scrape it, just at that little bit where that little dimple is, if you can see that. So I need to scrape that without damaging the wire. I can't see anything. I mean, I don't know if you'd have to do this under a microscope or what, but I cannot see what I'm trying to do. But I'll just have to guess that that is okay. So up around number 2, hold it in place there, pull it down. Getting caught, and then that's it. It's around number 2. I just have to hope that that's pushed back. I can't see it. Literally cannot see what it is I'm trying to do. Right, and then now I need to go through 8 and 3, so I need to move my guide things. I'm not sure they helped a lot anyway. I don't know if this shows, but I've been going at this for at least 3 hours now. I'm about halfway. Not huge progress. Right, the rotor is wound. There's 140 turns of wire in each slot, but each turn of wire goes through 4 times. So that's 140, 280, 560 turns of wire go through that slot and its matching slot on the other side. So that's 560 turns times 6 pairs of slots. So somewhere in the region of 3,000 or more turns of wire through here. You probably don't want to know how long it took, but I'll tell you, it took somewhere between 6 and 7 hours to wire that, to wind all the wire onto there. It was an absolute nightmare, and I will never do it again. I may put this video up even if this doesn't work. It will just be testament to man being beaten by mechanics, or man being beaten by machinery or something. It would be nice if it worked, but I haven't got any great hopes. I had real problems up here. This was actually the 3rd or 4th attempt, because the first attempt the wire snapped after about 2 hours of winding. The second attempt the wire snapped after about 3 hours of winding, and the third attempt I got quite a long way into it when I realised that I was winding the wrong numbers of wires, so I needed to start again anyway. So this was actually the 4th attempt, so I've been working on this for 3 days. Now I've got some slivers of plastic here which I've salvaged from old motors, and I'm just putting them into the ends of these slots, so you can see I've done all of these, so I've just got this one to do. The insulator is just poking on the end there. You can just see the insulator that's in there. So if I push that over there, and this is one of those things where you wish you had long fingernails, because it would be handy if you could push that down with a fingernail, because you need that bit held down while you fold the other side down on top of it to sort of hold the whole thing in place. And it's not keen on you doing that. But if I can get it started, I'm sorry if you can't see very much at the moment, but I get it started, then I get one of these, and this is the last one, and I've got to somehow get that into the end there like that and slide it along. It will only go so far, because then it will catch on some more of this, so I need that. Push down a bit. That needs to go down, so this one can fold slightly on top of it. If you don't get one over the other one, they sort of tangle themselves up in a mess and it doesn't work. Let's see if that will go. There we go. Yep, it's going in. And there we are. So we've got... Now, I'm not sure if I need to cut these shorter, but I'm terrified that if I try to cut them I'll damage the wire. I've still got a problem with the wire because the wire kept snapping. It mostly kept snapping because I was trying to scrape off the insulation from the wire. So in the end I put the wire around all these terminals without scraping the insulation off. So at the moment these terminals are not going to work because they're not going to be touching each other because the wire has probably still got some sort of insulating coating on it. That's my next problem of trying to work out what to do. I'm inclined to think maybe I can try a little dot of solder or something on there. Already when I tried to join the last two wires together here, which is where 24 and number 1 join, as soon as I tried to twist the wires together, one of them snapped. Now luckily it snapped at the pole where it's connected anyway, but this whole thing is just a nightmare because you might be able to see the wire there. I mean, the wire is like a hair. I can't work out the best way where the wire attaches here. I can't work out the way, or the best way of bending these back where they belong, so I'm trying a mixture of sort of getting it that far and then going over to this side, and it doesn't need very much effort, so I'm hoping that that is good enough. It pulls on the wire quite a bit, so I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Anyway, I'll keep bending these over and I'll bring you back and show you when I've got them all bent. I've had to put solder on the connections. Whether that's good or bad or not, I have no idea, but I just didn't have any choice. I could not get the wires to make a proper connection. If we look at continuity, then obviously when I've got continuity this drops down to, it's difficult to see, but you can see it goes low anyway, it doesn't quite make naught. And if I do segment 1 to segment 2, it goes down, segment 3, segment 4, segment 5. If I stay on 5 and go back to 24 or 23, you'll have to take my word for it, they've all got continuity. So this thing has got continuity all the way around. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to soak the whole thing in some sort of varnish, and then eventually I'm going to soak it in resin. But I think I'll soak it in varnish to start with, so it can get right down inside and help make sure that these wires stay insulated from each other. Thought you might like a view of that end. You can see just how nice that came out in the end. So it will be such a pity if it doesn't work. It's the next day. Everything seems to have dried up quite nicely. I won't poke the wires, but you can sort of feel that they are slightly more stuck together than they used to be. Now I'm going to repeat the whole process, but with some resin, which in my case will be 2-pack glue. Now I'm not quite sure how I'm going to do this, so I think what I might do is start just at that end and do some on this end, and then later turn it round to do this end, or maybe do this end and that piece, because I'm not sure I can do both pieces, because if I leave it like that, obviously gravity will drag everything that way, and if I leave it like that, it will drag everything that way, which I can live with, but I can't really leave it like that, because it will just make a mess more on one side than the other, so that's no good. I don't know if this is going to work. I've put a rubber O-ring there so that when the resin is here, if it tries to run down, it hopefully will stop on the rubber O-ring and not go all over the rest of the commutator segments. That may well not be the case, but that's what I'm going to try. But I'm going to try, I think, this way up to start with. Alright, I'm going to try this underside first. It's going to be very, very difficult to get the glue in there. I can see that before I even think about it. It's very difficult to work out how much of this you're going to need because it looks like a big space, but in reality it's a tiny, tiny little space. Let's turn that around a bit. Now what I'll do first is I'll go around this, I'll call it like the top ledge. It makes me wonder if I shouldn't almost use a brush. Right, and despite the fact that I've got quite a lot of light on there, let's try and get a bit more light. Excuse me if I bash you while I'm doing this. Oh, that's not too bad. Oh, I did. But if I want to get some, like I said, around near where that O-ring is, so that it's covering up some of my solder joints, because solder joints are always going to be a weak point. I mean, they're not really solder joints as such, because the solder is obviously just there to try and encourage the wires to join the segments. And if I'd had any sense, I'd have marked this, wouldn't I? So I know when I'm back at where I started. Never mind, I think that's it. And I want this to run almost like I did the varnish. I want it to run down into as many cracks and crevices as possible so that this wire can't move, because I'm fairly sure it was the wire moving that caused this motor to break in the first place. But of course I think the wire only moved because it hadn't been wound properly in those areas. But that's something we will never know for sure and never be able to prove. But that's certainly what it looked like. You could argue, of course, that the varnish covering that I put on was not needed if this is going on top. But I don't think that this will run right down between the individual wires, whereas I think the varnish coating might. Maybe it's possible to buy this not so viscous and then it would run down, but the way this comes out, I don't think that would work with this. Right, I think we're done. Maybe a little bit more there. Is that an air bubble there? It just looks a little bit more gooey there for some reason, like a lump. Hopefully it will just settle. Now I have got enough left over to turn it over and put a drop more on that side. I just don't know if that's an advisable thing to do at this stage. It might be a doable thing. Let's see if we can. Let's see what this does. Well, when I say enough left over, I haven't actually got enough, but some. Now I'm not sure if I've said, but this 2-pack glue is not the sort of 5-minute epoxy. This will take a good couple of hours to dry. So I'm putting this on this morning and I won't come back to it until sometime this afternoon. Hopefully we will have got some on there. I think I've just about made it round, and I think I've just about run out of all the mix that I made up, so that's a bit of luck. Well, I can of course make up some more and put it on later, so it isn't really going to matter. Yeah, I think that's mostly covered. Right, now as I want a reasonable amount in there and under there, I can just see in there a sort of a pocket that might have a little bit less. Like I say, I can always top that up later. Right, I think this is about as good as it's ever going to get then. There's the resin on the end. I mean, obviously if this doesn't work I'll just throw it away. Resin on the end of there, resin on there. and the resin is even on the rubber, so I don't think it will stick to the rubber, so I should be able to pull that out. Hopefully, although there is like a nice band of resin all the way around there holding all that together, hopefully the brushes are going to miss that. If I can find, that's a brush, if I can get the brush to sit, oh they sit, I'm not sure which way around they sit, but even if they sit at their widest point, they should miss. It looks like you can just about see a faint line there. So that used to sit somewhere around there, I think. So we should be well clear of this bit. So it's just a case of trying to put this back together again now. I would dearly love it to work, but I can't say I have any great hope. Well, no, that's not true. I have great hope. Right, let's try reassembling some of this. So I think that went there. Like that. I'm not 100% sure because it's been some time since I took all this apart, but I think these three were at this end. I think it's just a matter of sort of sorting out end play, so if I'm wrong I can probably sort that out later. And then I'm pretty sure that went there, and that one went on top like that. So that went there like that. And then we've got this, which I've cleaned up obviously. Now seems to be about where it wants to sit. It's difficult to tell because you can't turn anything because it tries to rub against the magnets, so you're always going to have problems. Right, I've got that, which I can't remember what that does. We've got this, which is the brushes and the brush holder. We've got that, which is the brushes. Let's see what else I've got. That needs pressing on the end if it ever works. Those are part of assembling the motor back on, so we don't need those yet. This is the bearing, so I think this, did it go on there? Yes, I think that went on there, didn't it? And then this must have gone on there. Work that out in a minute. Right, so we don't really want that there anyway while we're trying to get the brushes on. So the brushes, oh, it's fiddly as hell, but that's one. How do we get the other one in while we're holding that one? I bet we can't, can we? No, that one's fallen out. Oh no, that's in. My finger's not fat enough, look at that, look, I thought I had fatter fingers. So we need something that's going to hold those while we put the whole thing together. Looks like a piece of scrap. I wonder if I can. I can't even remember what this clip is for. But if that will go, yeah, like that. Oh, that can hold that one. Right, now if I remember rightly, yes, that's got a little cut-out peg. So that. Is upside down. There's that. That's got to go there. So this has got to go from this side. Oh, not good. You'd think these brushes would have been held on with something, but well, clearly they're not. No. And I don't want to. I could grip this with something, you know, tweezers or pliers or something, but I don't want to in case I crush. Because it's probably just graphite and I don't want to crush it. Right, let's try again. So with that, needs to go. It is useless, isn't it? Now when I did it from this side it held it okay, but from this side it doesn't want to hold it, it just keeps jumping out of place. Can I hold that one like that? No, see, it's doing the same, it's just trying to slide out of the way every time. That wire's now sticking in the way. So what are the odds of getting that in there? Nearly, sort of, almost. I think it's probably the words we'd like to use. That needs to go over there more. Still not enough. That needs to go down. Oh, whoa! Oh, that's not a good sign. Why won't you turn? What have I got I can turn it with? Let's see how tight it is. Oh, it's rock solid. I can't turn it at all. So what's that rubbing against then? Or is it just... Oh, mind you, we still haven't got the end cap on, have we? Yeah, that's probably why it won't turn, because we've still got to get this on. Oh, and before that can go on, this has got to go on. So that was on there. I don't know if it matters which way around this goes, but don't know if that'll actually show on here, but that says 36.5 volts. And it's just a little cheap variable voltage. And if I go over to here, it's going round. And does this mean we've got success? I have no idea. I'm still terrified of connecting it to 240 volts. Right, that's the motor soldered back onto the circuit board. Plus to plus, minus to minus. We just need a live and neutral in. I'm just looking at this plug that this Proxxon tool came with. I mean, it's got a 13 amp fuse in it, which I'm sure is not correct. The plug is just a piece of, well, just junk. And then if you look at the wiring, look at that. That's been cut right through there, the neutral wire. It's just unbelievable. Clamp the motor so that it doesn't shoot across the room. There's its original power supply that I repaired. I'm going to stand well out of the way. Right, that's plugged in. Wow, it's going round. It's on the slowest setting, I think. So I should I think you could say that's probably speeding up. Oh, it's starting to burn. Oh dear. Don't think it's supposed to be doing that. How long do you think it can keep that up for? What is burning, I wonder? Is it the motor or the brushes? Oh well, it was a success for what, 30 seconds?